I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, September the 5th, where we've got Southern Plains cattle feeders clinging to $1 this week. We haven't seen the trade as of yet, but Northern Plains have already sold probably enough cattle to establish their live price at 103. Well, if the Southern Plains guys do that, if they lose $3, they're going to be down to $1 a pound. And that sounds pretty low, and it is pretty low. We haven't been that low in 3 years. Before that, it was 9 years, and it's a pretty low level. But this basis jumping, it just continues to erode your market position. When you keep diving at that basis and you lose your market position every time that there's a basis available, and we just get lower and lower and lower, and then that makes your lighter weight cattle, your feeder cattle, your calves lower and lower and lower. Well, it works okay for your cattle feeders that are hedged up and living off the basis, and also they don't have to borrow as much money to handle the cattle, but it's not too good for your backgrounders and your cow-calf people that have to have money to offset their expenses. You know, these new pickups and tractors and things like that get higher every year, and you can't get by on less and less money. They've got to have a check that's sizable enough to take care of their expenses and feed their family, take care of their taxes, their insurance and everything, and it's just not working out that way. But let's look at the board for Wednesday. October live cattle futures down 1/4 at 99.02. So if we get $1, that's not much of a basis to jump at there. December's down 75 cents at 103.57. September feeder cattle up $1.40, so it was good, and a lot of products were up. Your stock market was up, and a lot of that had to do with Asian markets kind of recovering and things like that. But September feeder cattle up $1.40 at 135.55. October up $1.32 at 133.42. Like I said, your fat cattle trade is struggling here. And I know some of you guys have probably seen some of those deals that statements on been going around, say, social media and things like that, showing you what box beef cutout values were several years ago and what the cash fat cattle price was, and they sure don't add up, do they? But if you look back in there, and it works best if you look at 2014. Of course, that's whenever your cattle people were enjoying record profits, and your fat cattle market got inflated up there. Of course, your futures got inflated kind of artificially by running those prices up, but seems like they run them down all the time under normal circumstances. So what did it hurt to run them up there one time? But it ended up being some penalties. But back during that record price era of 2014, there were box beef cutout values that were actually lower than what they are right now, and you had cash fat cattle prices that were well over $40 higher than they are right now. So it just goes to show you that there's a lot of money being made in the middle there between the knife and between the knife and the fork. So that is a bad deal for your producers. It's a great deal for your packers. They're getting record profits, making all kinds of money there. And you know, I've told you guys several times, 2018 set an all-time record. Listen to me now. Last year, an all-time record for your producers receiving the smallest percentage of your retail beef price. And we're easily going to surpass that in 2019. This is right along the same lines that happened to your hog producers. And you know what happened to your hog producers? Your hog packers had such captive supplies, but they were still basing their market off country buying points, your stockyards, river markets, and things like that. It got to the point where they really didn't need that little dab independent hog feeders anymore. And so what they do, they took hog prices down to 8 cents a pound. Poof, no more independent hog producers. It looks a whole lot like that. That was in 1998, so that's been over 20 years ago now, but let's just hope it's not happening to your cattle people. Let's stand up and fight back a little bit and see if we can't hold this deal together. I'm not sure who's going to pay all the taxes on all these land out here, these cattle farms and ranches, places that people have been living, raising their family, running cattle. If they're not out there running cattle, are we just going to let your corporate packers and your big money games take over all the country, all over the West, all your cattle farms in the Midwest, everything? I guess they're just going to take it all. It sounds pretty scary, but this deal is serious now. If you take your cattle producers, your cow-calf men, your grazers, your backgrounders, everybody out, if you take them all out and just replace them with big money corporations and packers and derivatives of the packers and just that whole deal, and completely vertically integrate this whole cattle system, well, you've killed the cowboys, you've killed the westerns, you've killed just about everything. And I tell you what, it's got some people fighting mad. I'm probably one of them. I'm a Western preservationist. I love that stuff. There's still a little bit of romance left in this cattle production deal. And let's don't give it up without a fight. But if you look at your fat cattle market this week, on Wednesday, we did have some trade. 103 in the north. Wow, doesn't that sound cheap? 103. And 165 to 167. That was your market for the most part in the north. But if you break it down and look at Iowa, 1,900 head confirmed there for Wednesday. 102 to 103 was actually your spread on live cattle in Iowa, and they're the ones that have been receiving the premium because they've got those higher quality cattle by not feeding for efficiency. But your dressed market in Iowa, 167 to 168. Nebraska had nearly 5,000 head confirmed there for Wednesday. 103 live. Dressed sales mostly from 165 to 167. Had a few pluck deals here and there up to 170 dressed. Kansas had a few dress sales from 165 to 167. But we haven't seen any sales at all in Texas. Of course, there's not too many to sell down here. But your Southern Plains are going to have a hard time getting any better than $1. They might be able to hold $1. Well, what does that mean? Next week we're going to lose our triple digits and go down in the 90s. But that's where we're at, guys. Now let's look at your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on Cattle Market Central late in the day on Wednesday, sitting at 139.24, only down 11 cents. And that's actually holding together pretty well. I'll tell you where your feeder cattle market is on your yearlings is we're far enough removed from the fire at Holcomb, Kansas, there at the Tyson Fresh Meats, where everything fell out of bed there for a couple of weeks. We're far enough removed from that we're starting to get a little more confidence in your feeder cattle market, where producers feel comfortable bringing their cattle in there. Many of them, it's their only check for the whole year. Bringing their cattle into the sale, they feel like they are going to get the market price. But now we're seeing, at the same time as that confidence is coming back, now we're seeing pressure from the market itself. And as we start working more into the fall, your buyers are pretty well able to sit back and just be comfortable and pick around. They can really be picky and choosy because they know there's a world of calves coming just around the corner. And I say a world of them. It's going to be lighter than typical October. It's going to be lighter than last year, but there's going to be a lot of them coming. Right now, those feedlots are full of all those green grass yearlings that we've been shipping here since the middle part of the summer. Those are the kind of cattle they want to feed. They can't get too excited about feeding a fat ball and calf, and especially whenever it gets up to 100 degrees during the middle of the day and slips down into the 50s and maybe even the 40s as we work farther into the fall at nighttime. And it's hard on the health, and who wants to be over there doctoring those fat calves when they'd rather be over there watching those green yearlings put the pounds on. But let's talk about some of your big sales. OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma, 4,300 head this week. They called the feeders there $1 to $3 lower. You look at this report on Cattle Market Central. This is all the cattle represented here, and you see on the most popular weights, 873 head of 7-weight steers. They averaged 748 at 138.37. That was actually 82 cents higher than the weighted average from last week. 602 head of 8-weight steers averaged 854 at 130.11. Now that was down $3.65 from the weighted average from just the previous week. Look at some of your heifers. 1,116 head of 6-weight heifers averaged 662 at 133.78. That was down just 20 cents from the weighted average. And 417 head of the 7-weight heifers averaged 770, so that's well up into the 7-weight category at 125.20, and that was off about $1.53, which you could kind of understand as heavy as that average weight was. But Winter Livestock in Dodge City, Kansas, they really haven't had a good big heavy receipt sale since they had that King of the Ring sale there quite a while ago. But 2,000 head, they're starting to get them back. Prices were kind of uneven. It was really hard to gauge where they were at. But I did see this one stickout price from Winter Livestock and Dodge. 60 head, full load, 758 pound steers, 142.60. And that's a pretty respectable quote there. I want to give you some quotes out of another sale barn don't talk about very often, but as you guys start getting ready for fall grazing cattle, you're going to need some lightweight cattle. You'd like to find some lightweight cattle that's got a little bit of age to them. You go to places that have those kind of cattle. North Arkansas Livestock in Green Forest, Arkansas had a heck of a big sale this Wednesday. Had about 2,500 head all together there. And if you look at this individual quote or individual market report for North Arkansas Livestock, Green City, Arkansas, or Green Forest, Arkansas, not Green City, but the prices were sharply higher because they just had some of their best consignments and a lot more calves and a lot more yearlings, a lot more cattle than they normally have. So definitely your prices were sharply higher. But look at some of these prices, and this is where you could go to get some cattle like you'd kind of like to want to graze for some of your fall pastures. But 350 head of your 5-weight steers average 543 at 149.62. That's pretty respectable, guys. They don't sell them any higher than that way up in the upper Midwest. 469 head of the 6-weight steers average 644 at 142.77. Now some heifers, 290 head of 5-weight heifers average 544, 134.67, and 244 head of the 6-weight heifers at Green Forest average 639 at 128.09. And got one individual quote I'm going to give you from North Arkansas Livestock, Green Forest, Arkansas. 79 head of 611 pound steers bring 147. That's pretty good for the address. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.